Welcome to Book Banter with me, your host, Diane Burkhart. I hope you will join me every Wednesday as we explore all things to do with, well, books. Let's get on with our show today. Hello, my happy people. Today is August 30th, 2023, and I am so thankful to actually be able to bring you this episode today. You would not believe the things that have been going on in this apartment. I swear we have got to have some strange electromagnetic field anomaly going on here because our electronics have been basically revolting for the last week. This last weekend when I was trying to print my edits, my computer decided it didn't want to talk to my printer anymore. So my husband offered to print it from his computer to his printer, and then his computer wouldn't talk to his printer anymore. Then yesterday, I sat down and edited half of this episode, saved it, no problem, did a few more changes, and got about another quarter of the way through what was left. It would not save anymore. It would not save any more changes. And it said that my disk was full. I dumped a ton of photos and videos that I know I have saved in other places too, and it still would not save. I ended up having to turn off my computer and restart and just lose everything that I had saved or everything that I had accomplished since the first save. Luckily, I didn't lose everything. But I kept working on it and it would not save again. And I finally managed to at least get a decent version and was able to export it as an MP3, but which would mean that I couldn't take it back in and edit it. And I was like, you know what? Okay, it's decent. It's good. It'll work. So I went ahead and saved the MP3 and went to bed at 6 o'clock this morning and just finally, got some sleep. I was like, I'll look at it again in the morning. And I just came on and I dumped a bunch of more stuff off of my computer to make sure there would be plenty of space to save it. And I went through the whole thing again. And thankfully, it all saved. I definitely need to get a new computer and I need to upgrade on a few other things. So this would probably be a good time to mention if you would like to sponsor this podcast. We do have a buy us a coffee option where you can help support this show if you have been enjoying the different authors that have been coming on that I've been having conversations with. And like today, we have got such an incredible guest because this woman first had a phenomenal career in journalism before she became an author. And as you're going to find out, being an author was always her goal. So please, without any more blather from me, welcome to Book Banter with Diane Burkhart, Carole T. Beers. I have got an incredible guest with me today. She has had a career in journalism before she started her career as an author. Please welcome to the show, Carole T. Beers.
Hi, Diane. Good to meet you. Thank you for inviting me.
So why don't you go ahead and give our listeners a brief introduction to you?
Okay, a brief introduction to me. You can be found in the latest book that came out. It's Granny Gets Her Gun, which is a lighthearted look at a thoroughly modern grandma, almost 80, that rides trick shoots like her distant cousin Annie Oakley, is a role model for girls and women. And this is the Meet the Author blurb in the back of the book. Carole T. Beers, and I use the middle initial T since my family name was Thompson, and I want to acknowledge them. A reporter, columnist, and critic at the Pulitzer-winning Seattle Times for 32 years, resides in Southern Oregon with a Boston Terrier, a cat, a bird, and horse. She tends a sourdough starter of legal age, writes daily, likes spinning warm tales full of action, adventure, and love, refuses to act her age, somewhere north of 70, and all opinions and mistakes are her own. So that's kind of the short bio, but I was blessed to be sent to big cities in both coasts to cover ballet as a dance critic for 20 years. And someone once asked me while I was covering dance for the Seattle Times, are you or were you a dancer? And I said, yes, I dance with a 1,000-pound partner who speaks no English, and that would be my horse.
I like that. That's nice.
Oh, my goodness. As you can see, humor is really important to me and have been all my life. It's a way of dealing with different things. You know, it always amazes me that somehow we can find a way to joke at even a funeral. So that always speaks to me that there's always hope in the human soul.
I can definitely identify with that. That is usually how I cope with all kinds of stress, is by finding a way to make fun of it.
Oh, excellent. Well, you've had your share of challenges, physical especially, but yeah, the brain surgeries and so forth. I admire you greatly for that. And congratulations on your win as a hero, an inspiring woman writer.
Oh, thank you. I was very shocked that I won that. I still am sometimes.
Yes. What a story.
Your book just recently was a finalist in the Will Rogers Medallion Award for Western Humor.
Yes, that's correct. And they will announce whether it won a gold, silver, or bronze medal at the award ceremony where Craig Johnson speaks. Mr. Longmire speaks in October. So I'll know then whether I'm wearing gold, silver, or bronze in that finalist category.
That has got to be exciting.
Oh, it truly is. I'm very pleased with that, to add to the Women Writing the West Willa Literary Award in last year for Runaway Moon, which is a coming-of-age story with less humor, but it's there nevertheless in the characters and so on, about a runaway girl from an Oregon ranch, an abused girl who finds her purpose and her true family by going through the desert to catch mustangs and outlaws.
Now, you would be a good person to ask this. Whenever I first started writing my Western series, I did a little marketing research, and it told me that women who write straight Westerns that are not like romance Westerns tend to have a harder time breaking into that genre. Because for some reason that people seem to have this image that women do not understand how to write Westerns, do not understand how to use guns, do not understand how to work with horses. Have you found that to be true for your career?
That's interesting. I haven't even thought of it. I haven't found it to be true, but I could see that it might be. All the books are contemporary, first of all. So that lets them out of the traditional historic Western category. They're modern, but referencing the past. For example, the Granny Oakley mysteries, Granny Gets Her Gun being the first, and I'm just finishing up proofing the second one. They draw this modern day, late 70-year-old woman, rides horses, shoots guns, and even has experience in airplanes. And that's been my life. I grew up on the old time cowboy radio shows and TV shows. I was born the same year as The Black Stallion was best-selling book of the year, but that's not truly a Western. But anyway, I rode horses from age 4 and had my own horse at age 11 and competed in barrel racing, etc., and was exposed to a lot of Western people, male and female. My 4-H leader, she had a Stark Prize stallion that she stood, and we just admired her so much. And we went to all the rodeos around. My parents were both raised in Eastern Washington on ranches or farms, and a triple great-grandfather actually homesteaded near Grand Coulee Dam, and that farm exists to this day. But anyway, so I have that in my background, and Oregon Trail ancestors on both sides of the family. But I learned to ride, and I was fascinated with everything cow person. The female riders and shooters. I became a competitive pistol shooter and earned an NRA rating just in my 50s. But my dad was a hunter, so we had wild meat a lot on the table. And I just grew up thinking nothing bad about guns horses, runaway steers, rodeo, sunk deep in that whole Western continuing. It's not the past, it's today. And I live in a rural county in Southwest Oregon. And so we have the spiritual, political, and actual adventuring sorts of people here. So, it's just always been in my life. And I learned to fly planes with my first husband, got a pilot's license. I'm rated to fly private single engine aircraft and also have the NRA Sharpshooter rating. Just fascinated with machines and everything that opens up your world to you and that is exciting, has an element of excitement. And at the same time, I'm very spiritual and bake sourdough and love my pets and tend a garden. So that's kind of the background.
How has your garden been doing this year? Because mine's not doing that great.
No, it's limping. It'll be searingly hot for weeks and dry. And that's just too shocking. I mean, we started out well, right? With new soil and high hopes and small, healthy starts. And they took off for a while, but the produce has not been real abundant. You get some sullen tomatoes here and there.
Yeah.
And maybe a cucumber if it feels like it. So I don't know. Same in Europe, eh?
Yeah, we've had so much rain here that it's just drowning all of our vegetables.
Well, we had rain early, so that's why we had high hopes, and we've kept the wildfires under control so that there's not been too much smoke shading the sun and tainting the taste. But for some reason, it's just halting along, I'll say. It's very sad.
Yeah. Your Granny Gets Her Gun book. That one is actually an offshoot from your Pepper Kane mysteries, isn't it?
Yes, it is. I'm so in love with the family I created in those 5 Pepper Kane mysteries about a retired reporter from Seattle who moves to the Rogue Valley.
Sounds familiar.
And to help her aging parents and show her horse. And she runs a tack store called the Best Little Horse House in Oregon. Which leads to her starting a resort called the Best Little Bed, Barn, and Breakfast in Oregon. So that's where her mother's ranch was, and she gives the ranch to this Pepper. So I keep these characters lightly in the Granny Oakley mysteries, but she lives in the Rogue Valley, but she takes up trick shooting like her famous ancestor, Annie Oakley, to save her daughter's dude ranch, which falls on hard times because there's been a few murders.
Now, is the Rogue Valley mysteries the same as the Pepper Kane, or is that a separate series?
No, they're the same. The Pepper Kane mysteries are all set in the Rogue Valley. And the Granny Oakley new mysteries, the first is in the Rogue Valley where she's trying to figure out if the neighbor that looks like an aging Clint Eastwood, whom she fancies, is poaching deer and elk around the neighborhood. So she has to determine if he's the poacher or not before she can commit. But yeah, that's in the Rogue Valley. And then in the one I'm just proofreading now, Granny Storms the Beach, Granny Oakley Mystery 2. She goes over to a big festival on the Oregon coast and puts on sharpshooting shows to publicize, again, her daughter's struggling resort ranch in the Rogue Valley. So that line runs through them, the connections and the families. I just can't seem to set them aside. It's such a great family. And we have Pepper Kane's love husband, the Indian Way, is a Lakota tribal cop who is sort of floating. He spends time in the Northwest. He's from Standing Rock Reservation. But anyway, I'm able then to work in some indigenous lore and words and just keep it open. The books like to be open to different faiths, genders, life ways, all of that as well. I mean, that's the New West. After all, we're open. We're try to be, better be, accepting. So I just feel that powerful family has to be acknowledged. And so her daughter's always giving her a hard time. So there's one way you can get some views out. And she tells her, well, the real Annie Oakley championed children and women and thought women should try to do something outside the home as well as in to actualize herself. So she was really quite modern. And I love all those messages and connections.
Now, you actually have a connection to the Native American community in your area.
Oh, well, in Seattle, when I lived there working for the Seattle Times for 32 years, I mentored not only and taught at an Asian after school, private school, but also at an American Indian Heritage School in Seattle, and was invited to sing on a drum and dance. And I did make my own outfit for dancing, a ribbon dress and moccasins and a beautiful belt and a necklace with hair pipe breastplate, I guess you could say. So, but anyway, I read up and I had such deep friendships in that community because it resonated with me, with the respect, the need for nature and for humility and for interrelatedness, I guess. I mean, there was lots of warring, and I don't want to paint a sterile, happy picture of Indigenous people either in the past or today. But I found the beliefs and the ties and some of the practices spiritually and physically, the horses and so on, the nature, the Plains Indians, groups, resonated so much for me since childhood. So it has to be in the books. And I did learn some language and traveled by Greyhound bus to a Sundance in South Dakota and spent 10 days there fasting and praying and supporting dancers. So that was quite informative.
See, and that's amazing that you would spend so much time actually with the community before putting it in your books. I mean, you actually got to know the traditions and know the people, because a lot of people don't do that.
And I got blessings from Lakota elders, 2 of whom danced me out at the powwow. So that way, arm in arm, I was acknowledged. You know, not saying I was adopted. I was danced out, which is a huge privilege that you can stand in the sacred dance circle with the people. Yes. So I felt I'd been lied to by the public school system, and I don't want to get into any politics in that regard. And in general, about Indigenous people, I set about trying to learn for myself and feel for myself. The true stories are as true as we can get them now.
Well, you know, and I think that can be said about a lot of American history that's taught in school. I mean, there's a lot missing.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for saying that. And, you know, not to celebrate any one group in particular, but just to make it all accessible. We had in our house, we had exchange students from Iraq and Japan and so forth. My first husband was half Chinese, a quarter native Hawaiian, and a quarter white. And I was exposed to such fabulous culture about the Hawaiian people and the Chinese people as brought to Hawaii. So I'm so grateful for all of this education that just happened, not just in books, you know, but through my life. And honored to meet some of the people who were with the American Indian movement, for example, 20, 30 years ago, and listen to the stories and go to the powwows. So thank you, Lord.
You know, that's one of the things that I'm always telling my husband. It's like, I'm so grateful that I met him. He's from Chile, and we have lived in Denmark, and now we live in Germany, and we have a lot of friends from India. And it's opened up my world so much, getting exposed to all these different cultures. And I absolutely love it.
Lives are even so much richer than books, even the best written books. I mean, other lives and cultures are our absolute teachers and family.
Now, I do want to back up a little bit. I kind of skipped over this because I wanted to ask you about your career. You first started out as a journalist, and you had an incredible career as a journalist before you got into writing books.
I did. I'm so grateful for that, being guided into that. But I always wanted to be a writer because I had read that the best authors usually had worked for newspapers, or many of them had, or in some capacity like that. Teachers or work for newspapers, but were concerned with recording or telling or suggesting stories, right? And his stories, her stories.
One of the things I think being a journalist helps you to write concisely.
That's what it is.
Yeah. It really helps you to get down to what is needed in the story. Because when you're doing journalism, you don't have that much space. You have to be able to get to the point.
Exactly.
But you also have to make it entertaining for people to want to read it.
Yeah. You definitely have to have that action, that hook in the first paragraph. Like in a book, you have to have that first page, the tone, the who, what, why, when, where, or at least suggest it. So yeah, you have to draw the reader in.
Yeah. Can you guess what my first degree is in?
Journalism. I read that.
Yeah.
And I think, I have quite a bit in common because being able to travel to England for 6 months, a semester with the experiment in international living, which is a Peace Corps precursor, was very helpful also because at age 18, that's your first slam into other cultures, not just people coming here, but into the culture. So that was helpful. But then various publicity jobs for a private girls' school. But then I went to the Seattle Times. This is 69. The managing editor would hire women because they're going to just get married, have babies, and quit. And oh man, say that nowadays, right? Yeah. So I called him every single Friday. I'm not kidding. Every Friday for 6 months. Hi, Mr. King, do you have an opening for me yet? And I gave examples of several women who had already worked for the paper. Of course, they were society reporters or whatever. But anyway, I was only going to work for the Seattle Times, except no substitute. And by gosh, 6 months later, he called and hired me.
So what was your first assignment?
Typing up movie times and stuff. But one of my first stories that I was allowed to actually write was covering Bob Hope. It was in the arts and entertainment department, see. That's the beauty of it. I got to go to music and art shows and cover Bob Hope and got to meet John Wayne, interview him later on, and got kissed by him. That's one of my claims to fame.
Now, I read somewhere, too, that you even designed your own clothing line.
Oh, my gosh, I did. How to lose $10,000 in a couple of months. But anyway, I just love fashion. That's the other thing. Taught myself to sew when I taught at a private girls' school in Seattle. That's where I learned to admire good clothes. My mother was also quite a good dresser, a nurse, and she had some of her own money. But anyway, I love clothes. I decided to design a line. I didn't see any sporty nightwear for women. This was back in the 80s. Stretch knit, cotton, easy, long sleeve tops. And I started with a top called Booked for the Night. And it was reading shirts for bed. And it would have a pocket where your glasses and your bookmark could go. And it had sayings like Booked for the Night and things like that.
I like that.
But yeah, I did it for about a year. This is while working for the Seattle Times. And the Times, they finally said that you can't do this anymore because you write a column and you're writing about all kinds of activities and you might accidentally mention one of the stores. So anyway, but I had that experience of designing and sewing and getting labels made and all of that. That was fun.
So now how did you transition from being a journalist and doing all of these other endeavors to writing your mystery books?
Okay, well, I started out writing fiction, little stories and crayons and so forth, colored pencils, and a pilot's logbook that my uncle sent me from World War II, an old hardback, elongated black album. But anyway, so I always wanted to write fiction and I always dabbled in fiction. And I tried to sell stories in college. I actually sold stories to romance magazines. And that was my start in fiction writing. I became a journalist so I could learn to write and then so I could write books. So that was the overarching dream, was to write fiction. And when I retired 16 years ago, moved back to Oregon from Seattle, I began writing fiction and joined a group. You have to have a writer's group or a colleague at least who will be honest with you about your writing. And so that Monday Mayhem, we've been meeting for 16 years, and that's comprised of published authors, Clive Rosengren, Sharon Dean, Michael Neiman, he's a Belgian, and newly Jennifer Ashton. they've helped me bring from short stories into full novels and kept me sharp that way.
Yeah, I do envy you that. I'm rather isolated here in Germany. I don't have anything like that to work with.
Really? There's no one or two writers or readers that read your work for you?
I do have a writers group online that I had been a part of, but they hadn't been meeting for several months, I think almost a year, because the person running it wasn't able to do it anymore. She did just message that she wants to start it up again, so I'm hoping. But usually it's writing sprints and you're just reading little bits of writing sprints that you do during that hour. I've been trying to find just beta readers and haven't been able to find anybody to just read the books other than, my editor that I pay to read them.
Right. Oh, yes. Do you belong to Women Writing the West?
No, I don't. Actually, I am part of one Western writing group.
Women Writing the West. They're very collegial, congenial, and helpful. And they're having a completely online conference this fall. I would look that up. You can pitch a piece to agents. You can take part in panels that are on Zoom. I found another writing colleague there, Pamela Beeson, who writes wilderness adventure mysteries. And she has read a manuscript for me and helped me with things. So, a serious group like that, you may find someone there. I mean, I also belong to Mystery Writers of America, and they provided some help in giving me a mentor for 3 months on whatever topic I wanted. So I chose marketing and websites.
Thank you for that. That's a great tip.
But, longtime groups, and especially for you, I think Women Writing the West would be a big help. And also Western Writers of America. It's huge.
That's the one that I belong to.
Okay, well, that's huge. And on their webpage, you could ask about, I need to have a writers group. I would approach people like, oh, gosh, just whatever person whose work seems to resonate with you. And say, would you be interested or could you suggest someone that could be part of a regular author comment group? But I would start with the big organizations first. I really endorse Women Writing the West. That is just powerful. Tons of integrity and caring people.
Yeah, definitely need to look into that.
Because you need that other set of eyes on your work and that sort of knows your aspirations and some of your past work.
Yeah.
That can have a frame of reference to critique you from. And they.
Yeah, true. So now this is the part of the show that we usually do the 5 quick questions that never turn out to be quick, but we still keep doing it anyway.
Try.
So here we go. Question 1. Who was your first author autograph that you got as a child?
Logan Forster, Forster, Desert Storm, the story of an Indian boy and his horse. He rescued a throwaway thoroughbred in California, and with the help of a medicine man, he nursed it back to health and to where it raced and won. I think it won big California tracks. And that author was from Oregon also. I went to the library where he was signing books. I had him sign it, and he signed my book to Carole Thompson, my maiden name, whom I'm sure will have her own books published one day. I got that at age 11.
That's very cool.
The same age I got my first horse, Blaze, a Mustang from Eastern Oregon.
Question 2. Which celebrity was the most memorable for you to interview, good or bad?
Well, that's excellent. I think Rudolph Nureyev.
And was that good or bad?
It was good in every way. Also, Ginger Rogers. What a
nice.
But anyway, so Ginger Rogers, she had a ranch down here in Southern Oregon, still does, or her estate. But anyway, for their wit and honesty, if you ask the right questions the right way, respectfully and as a friend, and the sense of fun. What they carried with them was the excellence in their career. I mean, above many others. And I admired that so much and observed how they wore that excellence, maybe with excess pride in Rudolph Nureyev's case, but he deserved it. You know what I mean? And Ginger Rogers, just for her down-homeness. And Sparkle, I saw her in New York on the sidewalk one night, and she had the prettiest legs I'd ever seen. And I told her that. And she said, well, they're the last to go, that old saying. But anyway, when I interviewed her later, a couple of different times, I forget, she was in Seattle doing some kind of shows. And we got along so great because she was just Ginger, just like her name, Gingery. And while we were riding in the limo to her hotel, somebody rolled down the window in the car next, and he blew kisses and he said, please marry me, Miss Rogers. And, so those were memorable times, but also following Queen Elizabeth around on one of her visits and listening to her speak was a true honor and joy. I'm such a fan.
That would be amazing. I just can't even imagine what that would have been like.
I want to ride till I'm at least 95 like she did. Yeah. I ride probably 4 times maybe a week on my horse, Brad.
Your horse's name is Brad?
It's Brad. He was stabled next to an Angelina at one time. I've had him 8 years, and he is just part of me so much now. So much. So willing and to do anything I ask. And I ask nicely. We just putter about.
That's great. I
really
miss my horse.
I think interviewing the Lone Ranger was good too.
Oh, nice.
I was way Clayton Moore after he'd retired and turned in his mask and everything. Mm. But he was just so naughty in the elevator. But anyway, just flirty,
Yeah.
But that was for a different reason.
I remember actually meeting him as a kid. He came to open a mall in my hometown. And I just remember he was having fun with the crowd and just very friendly and open. It was great.
Oh my gosh. That's really him. That really is him. Yeah. You got the best. Those were some of the best.
Those have got to be great memories.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Is there one more question?
Actually, that's only question 2. We have 3 more.
Sorry, I better keep it shorter because you're going to get it for days.
See, this is why I always say these are 5 quick questions that never turn out to be quick. So don't feel bad because nobody makes them quickly.
Thank you.
So question 3. What was the best new innovation that came out during your career? Because I know when I was in college, that was when the internet was just first becoming a big thing. So what do you think was the best innovation while your career was going on?
That was it, probably together with cell phones or portable digital devices.
Yeah. And I think it's so interesting because say I would be part of Gen X, and people are talking about we are the last generation to have actually experienced life without the internet or cell phones or, all of these kinds of things. Now it's just so commonplace.
I know. How on earth did we do it?
And it's so funny whenever I tell people, it's like, yes, I remember we got our first computer when I was in high school. And they're like, wait a minute, what?
What?
Like, yeah, that's when personal computers were actually being made small enough to fit into a home.
Right. And at work, we had the yellow punch tape type computers, and we'd make Christmas tree decoration hoops out of that tape.
Question 4. What was the first plane you ever flew?
The first plane that I flew by myself?
Yes.
Oh, well, my husband had a biplane, Tiger Moth.
Nice.
I was allowed to take the controls of open cockpit inline World War II trainer Tiger Moth biplane, yellow. But the one that I flew completely by myself was a Cessna 150, and it was just the little workhorse trainer that I was able to fly solo, my first solo in. And when I went around the airport and landed, I had swallowed my gum, I guess. I was chewing gum when I went up, but there was nowhere to be found when I came down.
Question 5. How much of you do you bring to your characters?
Everything. Everything, but just in bits and pieces and channeled and custom designed for a particular character. But I sometimes gravitate toward characters that I've known or have dealt with in some way. I think a whole lot because I'm able to write about this now, this older granny
Mm-hmm.
And then as Pepper Kane is the 50-year-old, so she was my I call the 50s middle age.
Yeah.
We're bound for 100, hopefully, maybe 90. So that would have been me, what I might have done, retiring from the Seattle Times. I would have gone on showing horses. I did work at a tack store for a while during that first period of retirement. It's just, how can you write about things you don't know? I just think you need to identify whether it's with a villain or a heroine or hero to make it real. So all of us have a little devil inside of us. All of us have a little angel. So I suppose a good dollop, but I also put parts of people I love and have admired or hated also as characters. So that's a sideways answer, isn't it?
No, I think it makes perfect sense.
I mean, it's what you do as a heroine if you could and were bigger than life, etc. I think it's a better me, hopefully. But it's also a crabby me. It's a bossy me. I'm not afraid to put that in too.
Are you a plotter or a pantser?
Well, I guess I'm a pantser. I like to be surprised as I go along, but it takes more time. But I've tried to sketch out in a page or two a book, what's going to happen in a real rough way. So that helps. But I also went Chat GPT and I just said, give me a 30 chapter synopsis for such book. Say the next book, Granny Takes Las Vegas, will be book 3, Granny Oakley.
Mm-hmm.
And it came back in less than really 3 minutes with 30 chapters, 1 or 2 sentences for each, but they were very, very vague. She's introduced, her problem is, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't really write as you'd write. And I said, give me that in the style of Carole T. Beers. And AI came back and said, I'm sorry, that's copyrighted material.
Oh, well, at least it said that.
And I've been reading up on AI and saying, if you use Google, anything like that, MapQuest, you're using AI. They just don't call it that. It's gathering a bunch of information that you'd spend your lifetime in libraries gathering and condensing it for you. Now, I know there's been books plagiarized and all sorts of bad things, but I found it useful just at least to hone my direction as I'm putting the suggestions in AI for here's my heroine, here's my villain, here are the other characters, here's what I think will happen. I have to be pretty specific. And then it'll give me a little better answers. But I don't mind. I did that, but that's as far as it goes, just to give me ideas, especially if I'm blocked, and it gets me going every day. I know what I'm going to write, or at least generally what I'm going to write. Just helps a little bit.
Now, what part of producing your books do you find the most difficult? Is it like doing the layout, publicity, just general marketing?
Well, the first 8 books and the 10th one, Fire Girl, will be published next March. But the first 8 books were traditionally published by a small indie press in South Carolina. And I was on a standard royalty contract. I just edited the proof book he would send me. I'd make notes and send them back to him about corrections. But he did very little marketing, so I took that on myself on all my socials. I really developed my social media platforms, bought a few ads here and there, on Facebook and Amazon. And that's about it. I have appeared at bookstores, but mostly it's social and it's marketing, and I find that extremely time consuming, but fun. I don't find it hard. I find it fun. I don't see huge results because I'm not yet. I need to do NetGalley and BookBub. I think the new publisher, Black Rose Writing, they send out sheets for you to month by month what you should be doing as to marketing and so forth. And they give you discounted rates for some of your advertising. So I appreciate a little more guidance in that area. I think marketing is always the hardest thing.
Yeah, I don't think that a lot of people realize that even if you are traditionally published, unless you're a name like Stephen King, they do not put out a lot of marketing for you. That's up to you.
Still don't, right. So you have to do a lot more yourself. So a lot of people, I'm a writer, not a marketer and so forth. But, it's not true. You're both.
Yeah. Yeah, if you're not a marketer, you need to learn to be a marketer.
Right. But then also in line with that, reading the final proof edits is horrible because you're appalled at what you find. And I've been using pro-writing aid, but I find even that writing grammar programs will introduce errors and are not complete and will misread meanings. So you probably found that too.
Well, and I have a problem that because my computer program recognizes that I'm in Europe, it keeps trying to interject British English instead of American English. And so it changes my spelling on a lot of words. And I'm like, no, we don't have those extra U's. We don't have the S. We use a Z. Stop it.
You might have to start writing books from an English heroine's American standpoint.
So now would you like to read a little bit from Granny Gets Her Gun?
So this is Granny Gets Her Gun, Chapter 1. Vintage boots pinched her corns. Leather culottes did a fair impression of a lampshade. A red satin shirt, dripping white fringe, better suited a Fort Worth dockyard Santa than a skinny 80-year-old woman. At best, if there was a best, the duds yanked her mind off recent wildlife killings around her farm. Not to mention off a troublesome crush, and so forth. She's at a costume shop mirror looking at the costume her daughter's trying to talk her into wearing. She says, I can't wear this for my shooting act in your Western show, Pepper. That's Pepper Kane, her daughter. The crowd will die laughing. I crave color and excitement in my life. Attention, but not this way. No time to find another costume, Mom. Captures the era. Let's go. Martha flipped back her white braid and clomped into the dressing room to change into her black turtleneck, tall fashion boots, and sparkle butt jeans that proved she wasn't dead yet. Woody Woodhouse, eat your heart out. The trouble with being a relative of Annie Oakley was that people, even your daughter who knew better, expected you to look and act the part. No matter how old you were or how many times removed you were from the female star of Buffalo Bill's Wild West show, you had to be cute as a concha, brave enough to gallop a horse hell-bent for election, able to shoot out the eye of a Queen of Hearts card while aiming back over your shoulder. Sometimes it sucked. Well, that's it.
That's great.
It sucked.
This has been absolutely fabulous. I cannot thank you enough for being on Book Banter with Diane Burkhart with me.
It's been a huge pleasure for me to talk to you, and you understand all these things we've talked about. You've lived in the West, you write the West, you've been through such physical and emotional challenges. I just salute you again, and you're exactly the type of person I would write about.
Oh, thank you.
And read. You've gotta have humor though. I just think that's essential. Even if it's dark, even if it's twisted, some kind of humor, that's a huge emotion. And in the best books, even the most serious books have it.
Definitely.
Well, thank you again.
So there you have it, my conversation with Carole T. Beers, who writes New West mysteries with heart and a lot of humor. So be sure to check out her books. All of her links are available in the description of today's podcast. You can also find her on Facebook and Amazon.com. Be sure to check out all of her books, the Granny Oakley series and the Pepper Kane Mystery series. And she has a few other books as well that are outside of these series. So be sure to check them all out. Now, coming up, I also have a book that is getting ready to drop September 19th. I am dropping it on my birthday just for my own amusement. And even though it is my birthday, you are the one who is getting the gift because I have priced the ebook right now on pre-sale for only 99 cents. If you would like to help me have a great birthday, go buy a copy of Into the West Family Ties ebook right now for just 99 cents. It is cheaper than sending me a birthday card. And for the price of just one ebook, you can help give me a bestseller for my birthday. There is not an author on this planet who wouldn't love to have that as a birthday present. Now, don't forget, we also have a new companion magazine coming out called Book Banter Magazine. We're going to be bringing out the first episode in October with featured author Mercedes Lackey. It's also going to have several other authors who have been on this podcast, anywhere from the very beginning episodes to where we are now in season 2. We plan to have all kinds of fabulous spooky writers for our first Halloween Spooktacular. Yeah, we know that's a little bit tacky, but we love Halloween, so we don't care. And this first issue is going to be so fabulous because we're going to have some amazing sci-fi authors, horror authors. We're going to have authors who write for children, young readers, young adults, and adults. There is going to be something for everyone in this issue. So be sure to keep watching our social media, and better yet, subscribe to Book Banter with Diane Burkhart. Because if you love books like we do, you do not want to miss this podcast or any issues of our magazine. Now it's that time for you folks to go forth and be very happy.